Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Arna Sahu, host of Arna's News, where on this podcast channel, I aim to eliminate the gender gap in the STEM fields by featuring inspiring female professionals and highlighting their stories and accomplishments to further encourage girls. Today on episode 51.
And that is like the best way to succeed in business operations is just to gain exposure to as many sides of the business as you can, so that you know how to handle all different types of problems. As I was kind of alluding to, like business operations is anything from looking at like headcount, financials, you do program management, you do event planning. And so the more things that you expose yourself to and the more things you see, like the less you'll be surprised by things that pop up and the better you'll know how to react to everything. And so I think by doing this, you'll definitely be a stronger candidate and better at biz ops.
Today on episode 51, I'm pleased to announce our guest, Lauren Green. As a recent graduate of Management Science and Engineering at Stanford University and also a business analyst too at PayPal, while also being a student athlete in the sector of Division I swimming at Stanford University, she is somebody who has tools and technology and interpersonal skills in the industry we're in right now. So thank you so much, Lauren, for being here today. Before we dive into the questions, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Arna. So first off, just want to thank you for having me on your podcast. I think this is a really great show you have going on, and I just really appreciate the message you're relaying about women in STEM. So a little bit about me. My name is Lauren Green, and I was born and raised in San Jose, California, and I'm currently living in San Francisco. I went to Stanford University for college, where I studied management science and engineering, concentrating in operations and analytics. And I was also a member of the Division I swim team there for all 4 years. After graduating in 2021, I have been working at PayPal, and I've been in a few different roles at PayPal, but currently I'm in a business operations role in the office of the CTO, and I've been in this role for about a year.
Yeah, I love that. So thank you so much for being here. And my first question for you is tell us a bit about your career path.
So I've had a bit of a journey to where I am today. I actually started out as a tax intern the summer after my sophomore year. And so I kind of stumbled upon this position because I actually wasn't planning on getting an internship that summer. As I mentioned, I was an athlete at Stanford, and so I had planned on just training through the summer. But I actually was injured that year, and so wasn't able to train over the summer. So thought I would use my time wisely and try and apply for internships. And so at that point, I had no work experience, and I kind of just mass applied to everything that sounded interesting. And at PayPal, I think I applied to like product management roles, but wasn't able to get those roles. But I guess my name like was in their system or something, because when they were looking for a tax intern, they had reached out to me. And so that role sounded interesting and sounded like a good opportunity. So I interviewed and was able to get the role. And so that summer, it was a lot of project management, but honestly, I think the biggest thing for me was just like learning how to operate in the corporate world, best practices, ways of working. And I really liked the team that I was on, but kind of realized that I didn't want to stay in finance and I wanted to transition more into the engineering world. And so used a lot of my time networking with product and program managers because that was the role that I found like very interesting. And I was lucky enough through my networking discussions to be offered a different internship the following summer. So the summer after my junior year, I interned as an engineering program manager. And so this internship was pretty structured. I had like one main project, worked on like deprecating a platform. So lots of identifying dependencies, working with stakeholders, data manipulation, managing timelines, all that fun stuff, and really liked that role and was able to get a full-time return offer the next year after graduating. And then actually started a different role because I didn't have headcount on my internship team. So when I started full-time, I was already in my third role at PayPal. But I started as a business systems analyst in planning and portfolio operations in our infrastructure org. And so this was a team that basically sat between leadership and all of the infrastructure portfolios. And we helped with like annual planning, quarterly planning, process improvement, data hygiene, all the things along those lines. And I was in that role about 6 months. But then the engineering world at PayPal went through like a massive reorg. And there was this new team created called the Office of the CTO, which is like the centralized business operations function for the CTO. And so I was then put on that team and started working as a business operations analyst. And so the way I kind of think of this team and this role is we take care of everything non-engineering for our engineers. So anything like organizational, financial, execution health, like our job is basically to make engineers' lives easier. And so my day-to-day is like a lot of managing cadences and tactical things for the CTO and the leadership team. But my team's also kind of a catch-all bucket. So I'll work on anything from communications to budget challenges, organizing like our internal files, planning hackathons, lots and lots of things. So I've been in this specific role for about a year. It's my favorite one yet. It's just a lot of exposure to all the different facets of the business, and it's different every day, which I like.
I love that. I mean, you said in your sophomore year you were injured, so you didn't really have any plans, but you mass emailed a bunch of different companies, and lo and behold, from something came out, an internship. And then from there in PayPal, although you had different roles, you always pivoted to something that you actually enjoyed. And now, I mean, I saw you have a smile on your face when you talked about your job right now. So, you're really having fun and you're doing a lot of amazing things at PayPal. Yeah, so my next question for you is, what advice would you give someone wanting to pursue a career similar to yours? And do you have any tips to succeed?
So I think advice for pursuing a career similar to mine, I'll steal advice that my VP gave me. And that is like the best way to succeed in business operations is just to gain exposure to as many sides of the business as you can, so that you know how to handle all different types of problems. As I was kind of alluding to, like business operations is anything from looking at like headcount, financials, you do program management, you do event planning. And so the more things that you expose yourself and the more things you see, like the less you'll be surprised by things that pop up and the better you'll know how to react to everything. And so I think by doing this, you'll definitely be a stronger candidate and better at biz ops. I think for tips to succeed, the biggest thing for me that I found to be useful is figuring out ways to be resourceful. There's a lot of ambiguity in business operations, both in like what's being asked of you, as well as like how to actually get things done and how to accomplish things and who to ask. And so figuring out how to solve things on your own and like who to ask for help and what resources to use is really an important skill to have. And I also think it's important in business operations to be open-minded. As I'm saying, anything and everything is thrown your way. And so, there might be things that you don't deem like in your job description. And so you really have to have an open mind to what you're working on.
Yeah, because like there's so many things in the business side of things that, not a lot of engineers know of. Like you said that you guys plan hackathons. You're in the office of like the CTO, so you kind of do a lot of stuff for like the leadership team. So I feel like there's like a lot of things that you have to do and keeping that open mind while also, exposing yourself to other sides of what might go down in, the business side of things because there's like a lot of things that happen and just being resourceful in that sense as well.
Exactly.
And what is a common myth about your profession that you want to debunk?
So I don't know if it's a common myth, but it's definitely something that I thought before I went into business operations, and that is that business operations is the same at every company and that you can like define business operations honestly. And the way I found this out was, as I was saying, I was reorged into a business operations role. And so once I found out I was going into this new role, I Googled what business operations was, and I wanted to figure out like, okay, what is this? What my job going to be? What will day to day look like? And everything I read was nothing of like what I ended up doing. And so I think just realizing that business operations is going to look very different company to company, and even like day to day within your own company. It could be like more tactical one day, more strategic the next, just depends on like what your team and your leader needs.
Yeah, I mean, the internet, although it has a bunch of different things, it might not give you the answers to everything because what happens at one company probably won't be your role in the next one. Everything changes. And it kind of goes back to being open-minded with, oh, okay, there's this thing that I have to do, but if I don't know that, then I'm gonna have to learn this, and just being resourceful in that way again.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just been a lot of like figuring things out on the fly.
Yeah. And if you could step into my shoes or younger self, what would you have asked yourself that I didn't?
I would probably ask, what advice would you give someone earlier in their career? And the reason I would say this is because it's something that I've kind of had to figure out along the way. Because my answer would be to use your differences to your advantage. I think something, so I've been working full time for 2 years, and something that I think has held me back and I've definitely struggled with for a while is being the youngest and the most inexperienced in the room, and kind of using that as a crutch and like a reason to not speak up and share my ideas. I think in the beginning, I definitely had the mentality like, all right, if these more senior experienced people aren't thinking what I'm thinking or aren't saying the idea that I have in my mind, like I'm not going to share it because there's obviously a reason that they're not discussing it. And kind of learning to shift that mindset to like, okay, I have a different and a unique perspective, and like they might not think of what I'm thinking because they're kind of set and doing things the same way over and over. And like it's good to have a fresh perspective and bring new ideas in. And so definitely has been a work in progress for me, but I've been trying to use being different as in being new and inexperienced to bring in new ideas.
Yeah, I love that positive shift because a lot of people would think that, oh, if you're not like, if you don't blend in, quote unquote, with the rest of the people in your team, then, you're kind of the outlier in a graph. I mean, your ideas and opinions, they kind of don't really matter. And if they do, they're going to be different and they're going to be like pushed down. But as you said before, if you have a new idea, but because you have this new, fresh kind of perspective that a lot of young people have, it's much better to actually share your ideas than to forget about them or ignore them in a place where you're probably filled with other seniors.
For sure. And like the more you share your ideas, you'll realize that they're beneficial and they're well received, and it makes it easier to continue sharing.
Yeah, and it also helps you distinguish yourself in a place where, you might not have been able to before.
Exactly.
And what are the best resources slash books that have helped you find your career path?
I, to be honest, haven't read too many like career focused books yet. That is something I'm working on though. But I think for me, the biggest resource has been networking. And that's networking with people both internal and like external to your team and your company. As I mentioned, the reason I got my second internship was through networking. And also, I think in my day-to-day job, I do a lot of networking with people in my team and people outside my team. And it's helped me a lot in my role, because it's helped me learn about what other people are doing and gives me context into like why things are changing or like what's going on. And so that just helps me do my job better. And it also builds a lot of like connections in a community, which like one makes your job more fun, but two, like it helps get things done when you like are friends with people and you know who to go to work on certain things.
Yeah, I mean, as a young person, it might seem, oh, networking is only for like the older people, but like there's so many benefits to actually making connections with people. Like I'm a student myself in high school, but I just know that the importance of talking to people, regardless of what stage they might be another student younger than me, but the type of information you can get from any type of person in any stage of their life can be really valuable because it could kind of open a door that you wouldn't have known before. Like for me, for example, when I interview a bunch of people, I kind of build these relationships with them. And later on, if I have any questions or concerns that they probably have struggled with, I could ask them, and they're kind of my quote unquote mentors in that sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah, building these types of relationships and connections can really help you and really kickstart your career and get some really cool opportunities.
Yeah, it can definitely be intimidating, but it's definitely worthwhile. And honestly, that's one of the biggest reasons I like working at PayPal is that like everyone is super friendly and super willing to just have a conversation with you about, what they do and how they can help you. So that's really why I like working here.
Yeah. And what do you think is the vital factor that shaped your career? What was your life before learning it, and what was your life after learning it?
Yeah, so I think for me, the biggest factor was being a competitive swimmer. There wasn't really a life before it because I started when I was 7. But basically, I started swimming year round when I was 7 years old, got pretty into it like middle school and high school, and ended up being able to get recruited to swim at Stanford. And so while I swam at Stanford, you're training 20 plus hours a week and you're doing, like a rigorous academic load. And so that's pretty much all you have time for is academics and athletics. And so from swimming, I really had to learn time management, how to plan, and really how to be, disciplined to get things done. And so I think learning those skills while I was swimming has helped me because they've kind of become a lot more like second nature and intuitive to me. And so when I went into the workforce, I didn't have to focus really on like how to plan and how to be disciplined. Those just came naturally to me. So that kind of freed up time and energy to spend on like more strategic things and actually getting things done. So I think just having that mindset of time management and planning and being able to manage timelines has like tremendously helped me in the workforce.
Yeah, no, I can totally agree because right now I use a planner and calendar to kind of like jot down what I have, like block my schedule. But before I learned this tactic, my life was a little bit of a mess. Like I didn't really know what was happening and I'd forget these events and I'd like beat myself up about it. But just being strategic with your time because everyone only has 24 hours in a day and you can only do so much in that time. But being smart with that time, if that makes sense, can really help you, block out what you have to do, what's important, and really help you get your stuff together.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's helped me figure out, well, because as you were saying, I've used, agendas and my calendars and plan every minute of every day, basically. But yeah, it's definitely been a learning journey, but it's helped a lot.
Yes. And because we have some additional time, my question for you is what's one thing you wish you had known when you began your career path?
So this is kind of ties back to what we were talking about, which is interesting. But I think that knowing how much change there is within the corporate world and how important it is to be flexible and adaptable. So like we were talking about with agendas and planning everything, I kind of like went straight from the rigid academic mindset to the corporate world. And I tried to plan everything and like set a very strict timeline and plan to everything. But in reality, like I think in the corporate world, things are constantly changing and evolving. It's like, well, yes, you really need to be organized and on top of your stuff. You also need to be adaptable and fluid and be able to think on the fly and realize that things aren't set in stone and like might not go the way you expect. So you got to be able to like change plans immediately.
Yeah, I mean, with what's happening in like the economy right now, there's like a lot of change that's happening, and I'm pretty sure on the tactical side of things, it might get a bit harder. So just knowing that it's okay to like adapt, and if you need to take a break from things, take it because it's okay to like have spontaneous bursts. Before, a kind of big myth of mine was that I was a very structured person. If I didn't get this done, then I would be really mad, even
Mhm.
though I was using a planner. But just knowing that it's okay if you have spontaneous bursts, it's okay if you don't finish your rigid structure of planning. And that's all right because it's much better to be adaptable with what you can do and what you can't do. So you can figure out how you can take your next steps from there.
Exactly. I'm a big list person. I have a bunch of to-do lists, but I've definitely shifted my mindset to where like lists are good to keep track of everything, but they're not going to be the end all be all. Like they're going to change and it's okay if I don't check everything off.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay if you have like 10 things to do, but you only checked off like six. That's
Exactly.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how do you continue to learn in order to stay on top of things within your role?
Yeah, so this definitely ties into what we are talking about. I think when I had a very well planned out organization system for school, and it honestly like doesn't transfer to the corporate world because like you don't have specific deadlines assigned to most things and everything is variable. So it did take me a while to figure out kind of the best organization system for the corporate world. But I met with a lot of my peers, and like when I would meet with them, I would ask them, how do you organize your things? Because like I want to make sure I'm not missing anything and I want to plan. And so that's kind of how I've been learning. It's just like from my peers, like what they do and kind of adopting what they do and seeing what works best for me. And so I think at this point I have a good method down, but still always learning and open to new ideas, especially with like organizing notes and how to take notes and all those things.
Yeah, I mean, in school you learn how to like take notes and everything, but I feel like once you go from a school setting to a professional setting, not a lot of things kind of flow over. You have to like relearn things, and it goes back to the adapting part of things. But relying on your connections and learning from more senior people, that's how you get the mentors.
Mhm.
That's like it's a good way to learn things that you might not have learned before, like how to take notes, how to be more professional with things, how to stay organized, things that you probably already knew but have changed over the course of time because nothing's going to stay the same and everything is always fluid.
Mhm.
And before we end off, do you have any last words to the audience?
No, I think you covered it. Thank you so much for having me on your show. This is great, and I really, really love what you're doing here.
And here are my 3 cents on the episode with Lauren. 1. The importance of exposure and resourcefulness. Lauren advises that to succeed in business operations, it's crucial to expose yourself to different aspects of the business. This helps you solve a variety of problems and become a better candidate. Additionally, being resourceful and knowing how to solve problems on your own is an important skill to have. 2. The misconception about business operations. Lauren debunks the myth that business operations is the same across all companies. She emphasizes that the role can vary significantly day to day and company to company. It can involve analytic or tactical work depending on the specific needs and context of the organization. And 3. The value of networking and connections. Lauren highlights the significance of networking both externally and internally within your team. Networking played a crucial role in helping her secure her job and has also been instrumental in her role as a business analyst, allowing her to learn about what others are doing and understand the context behind changes. Building connections can help get things done and make work more enjoyable. Thus, that concludes the episode for this week. If you want to know more about how I relate to these amazing topics, then stay tuned for upcoming episodes. A free way to support this show is by leaving it a 5-star rating and a review on the player you are listening to. Let me know what you enjoy about this podcast, as it's a chance to tell me what you love about the show, and it helps others discover it too. Once again, thank you for finding me, and I hope we stay in touch with each other. Dito, you're listening to Arna Sahu, the host of Arna's News. Toodles!